Well, good afternoon. Here we are at Nuts, Bolts, Points and Issues, and today we're at the Kennebunk Library. There are libraries in every town across this state, and we're going to talk to you about a person that published their own book. This library has 30,000 books in it, and it took innumerable hours to write each one of these books by the author of each individual book. And today we're going to talk to one of the people who have actually published a book. As you can see on the shelves, there are books all placed by ISBN numbers. Today we have Charlotte Ann with us. And Charlotte, you wrote a book.
Yes, sir, I did.
And you have your book with you?
Yes, here it is.
Oh, thank you.
When I first sat down to write the book, what was I thinking about? Well, I knew it was going to take me a while to write it because it's very emotionally a lot of emotion went into that book. So it took me a while to really feel like I could do it. I started out very briefly doing it. Basically, I wrote it on a computer, and I had a gentleman that I had known for years. He helped me he gave me pointers, like doing editorial work, and I started with my first chapter called Harmony, and she was one of my alters that helped guide the little ones so they could learn to trust her. The first page that I wrote was the beginning of my book. The first sentence that I wrote was the first sentence of my first chapter of my book. I started writing my book, it was March. I had just moved to Bar Harbor, and it was quiet there, and I started to write my book in March of 2001. Oh, yes. I had taught myself how to use a computer. The first day I started, I wrote for a long time because there was so much in me that I wanted and needed to get out onto paper because I needed a voice. I wrote probably a good 2 or 3 chapters in about 2 days. In that 2 days, I did work about 5 hours a day, sometimes more, and sometimes less. It depended on how stressful it got for me. My book was very emotional. I was in a place of desperation, and I had been suicidal for a long time because of my severe depression. So it was very emotional to write my book. It was very helpful to get my book written down. It was cathartic to me, very cathartic. Well, in the beginning, when I was writing my book, I had 6 dominant alters, and so they came first in the book because they usually were outmost. And then as the chapters went on, I would put like 3 or 4 different people, I had 3 altars for my satanic ritualistic abuse, and I put them all together in one chapter. And it was, I had two altars that were counterparts of my grandmother's, and I put them in one chapter. So it just, I was very organized. When I think of things, I would go to my computer and put it on in the book when I was thinking of things.
Yeah.
This started at 2001 when I started writing, and I finished writing my book in 2005. The total years was actually about not quite 4 years. I had to rewrite, you know, as I went along. I would come back and I would get advice, and I would come back and I would edit some of the things out. And because I noticed that I was being redundant with some things, so I had to go back and re-edit it. I kept rewriting up until, let's see, the year 2009. I spent about 4 years rewriting past 2005. I would send my editor floppy disks. That's what they were using back then, was floppy disks. And I would send him my floppy disk, and he would write me an email and say, you need to redo this or redo that. And later on, as I found a good psychiatrist and psychologist that believed my diagnosis and started helping me, I was able to start integrating my altars to the point that I would go back into the chapters and I would tell them that so far this many altars have been integrated into me. And that was a process I kept doing up until about 2009. My book, Shattered to the Core, I came up with the title right away because my interest in finding out about my diagnosis, I wanted to read everything I could find about multiple personality, which it was called at that time. So I know they were anyone of a child of age 2, their personality, their core personality, has not had a chance to develop. So therefore, because my abuse started by age 2, I was shattered, and I thought of a mirror being slammed to the floor and in all different pieces. And I stuck with that title because it fit how I felt. It felt how I lived my life for so many years. Well, thinking of a shattered mirror, I thought what I need to do is get a good picture of myself and search for a graphic designer, which I found a lovely woman in Brunswick, Maine. Her name is Brooke Parkin. She did a lovely job. I sent her my picture and I told her what I wanted, and she did just fabulous. And I really like my cover of my book because it says so much. It, to me, is awesome. I finally got my book copyrighted in the year 2005, and after that, I started right then sending out portfolio things to different publishers. I started right away doing that. I would send out probably 5 or 6 a month because I lived on disability and I couldn't afford any more than that. And I did that for the next 12 years. And some would send me letters, oh yes, it will be published. You could have a bestseller, and I mean, 12 years is a long time to wait to be published. And it got very frustrating for me. with my publishing, I decided, with the aid of a friend of mine that I've had for a while, to self-publish, okay? So I didn't know anything about it. I first knew that I had to get all of my book was mostly all in one pile, but there was different parts to it, like the table of contents and things like that, that were in different piles. And I had to get it all into one file to be able to get it on Amazon. And then what I did from there, I had to format the book. I made me an account with Amazon, and I was able to finally get the right, Moby was what they wanted for the Amazon. So it took me 2 or 3 tries, and I got a little frustrated. So I stopped for a few days, and I went back to it and finally got it on there. So that process took me a while because I was just learning, and I was asking for help from anybody that would be kind enough to help me. One thing I remember about when I started writing my book was, I'm living on disability. You live on a shoestring budget, and I had no money to ask to find out someone to help me with anything. So I had this little rotten computer, and I used it until it died on me, and I was going to go and buy a car, and I relinquished buying a car so I could buy a computer so I could finish my book. I've been through 4 computers since the first day I started writing my book. I used Open Office Writer because it's free and it's a wonderful tool. So anyone that wants to use that, it's really a good thing to use. And I did have a computer blow out on me, and stupid me hadn't backed up my book. But it's a good thing that I did have a hard copy of my book. So page by page, I had to re-screen it and get it back into my computer. That took me forever, but I got it done. You know, after all I've been through and all the work, ever since living in Bar Harbor and starting my book and the trials and the tribulations, I'm so glad that I made the decision to self-publish, and I encourage everyone else to do it. If you have a book and you write it, don't talk about it, write it. I have learned so many things, and people have helped me, and I appreciate all they've done for me. And as for my book, you can get it purchased if you go to http://amazon.com/dp- and then there's my ASIN number, which they will show on the camera later. So if you are interested in reading my book and learning about my life, after having 57 personalities, you can go to Amazon and just Google in Shattered to the Core, and the author is Charlotte Ann, myself, and you can purchase it as an ebook. But I also would like to let you know that in the next 2 weeks, I will also have it as a printed book also. One other thing about my book is the fact that I worked with Create Space, and this is the company that helps you get your book into print. And what they're going to do is they're going to make sure my book, my nonfiction memoir, is going to be in all the libraries. My book, Shattered to the Core, was published on January 1st, 2016, and I knew the avenue I wanted to take was to do public speaking. So I started checking around newspapers, TV programs, professors of psychology from the universities. I went and spoke at Kennebunk Library, and there was 20 people there, and they enjoyed my talk very much, and I enjoyed that. I really enjoy public speaking, and I also have opportunity to speak at the University of Maine in Augusta with the class, a psychology class, about dissociative identity disorder, which multiple personality is now called. And I'm trying to get a hold of the Rotary Club to do some speaking with them also. And so my feelers are just out, and I keep doing that and go on from there, and it's exciting. As I think of my book and the travels that I've made in the last 15 years of my life, I'm so grateful that I stuck in with it. And sometimes it gets real hard, and there's walls that come against you, and it's like it's a fight to go on. But you know what? You just take a breather and get up and start over. If you want to write a book, don't keep saying you want to write a book. Do it. I'm 68 years old. I wrote a book. I got it published, and I'm happy about that. And I think that it's very important that you get your story told. We all need to have a voice. You know, especially in this day and age where we have such wonderful technology that we can do an ebook. And I was basically charged hardly anything. And it's a good thing I wasn't, because I couldn't have afforded it. But all you have to do is join some groups, like LinkedIn. They have groups for writers, and they give you advice. I'm a member of that group, and it's really paid off. It's helped me a lot in different areas. And I want you to really go and do what you wanted to do for so long. Don't let anybody stop you, no matter what. It's worth all of the effort and all of the trials, because in the end, you will come out feeling absolutely wonderful. I want to thank you all for listening to me today. I appreciate it. I hope you'll go read my book. Try the first chapter. If you don't want to read it, that's fine. But you get out there and you write your book, and don't let anything or anyone stop you.